Especially the people that go from NA to boost.
Right. I mean, it's a 100% plus increase in horsepower. One of the recent vehicles we did, it was 2 weeks from 290 horsepower to 600 horsepower. 2 weeks. And he came and picked the car up, and I took him for a ride in it. I mean, he kept his composure, super nice guy, but he was grinning from ear to ear. You can't help it. You just can't help it. So, but the really big thing there is the safety factor. We like building fast cars. Everybody likes speed. Obviously, with speed, there's always that risk factor. There's always that little bit of danger that comes with it. So we just want to make sure people understand what they're getting into before they hit that loud pedal and what to expect. The torque management has been a major help with that. Yours truly went and tested it out in a car that does 4 digits, and it works. It really works. So, that was really cool to get to go do that and make sure that functioned, because, if it'll perform at that level, then we know for a fact it'll keep everybody at the 600, 650, 700 horsepower mark safe.
What's up, guys? Elziah with another podcast, SOHO Podcast, where we discuss everything VQ related. Today we have Justin on the pod. Justin, go ahead and tell the guys and girls at home what you do here at SOHO.
Hey, y'all. So if you ever call SOHO, email, text, DM, I'm probably the guy on the other side of it. I'm also, one of the guys who has the very, fortunate, whatever you want to call it, of getting to drive the cars, getting to take clients for first rides in their vehicles and driving some really cool and fast stuff, and get to live vicariously through our clients, whenever they get to build really cool things. So that's pretty much me. I'm a sales specialist. I'm a little bit of a technical specialist as well. When it comes to, research and development, I like to have a pretty good hand in that, just because of my experience with a lot of different platforms and, parts and components and methods that I can bring to the table. But we got a really good group of guys here, and they do a lot of awesome stuff. So I'm just glad to be able to pretty much put my 2 cents in every now and then, hopefully, make some really cool products for you, which that's what we're here for. So we're here for you guys. So thank you. We couldn't do what we do without, y'all supporting us.
Well, Justin, I'm going to jump into background stuff about you, because you have an extensive background and you do a lot of the R&D here at SOHO, and you do a lot of the technical stuff too. So just give the people a little bit of a background story on how you got into cars.
So, sure. I'll go back to the start. My dad had a classic Mustang when he was in high school, when he was in college. When he gave that up, because funny enough, he didn't think I would be in the car. So when I was 5, he sold it when we moved. And, he decided he wanted another one when I was in middle school. So when I was 11, he bought another one. And then during that summer, I got to learn how to rebuild an engine, learn how to do brakes, learn how to do stuff like that on that vehicle with him. And that just really lit a fire for, having that passion. Now, of course, when I was younger, muscle cars are expensive and they ain't getting any cheaper. So I had import money. So after, I went through high school, I bought my first 240SX at 17 and did an RB20 swap, which wasn't super common back then, but, built one. And I'll tell you, man, I thought I was the king in town. 215 evil horsepower in an S chassis, and I would just race anything and everything I possibly could. Who doesn't, as a young kid, think they're ruling the streets with 215 horsepower turbocharger and a Skyline engine? It's just awesome. So, but yeah, basically, went through that, progressed through a lot of different vehicles. And I've owned a lot of different vehicles. I've owned everything from, Nissan to Toyota. I had a Mark IV. I've had a Mark III Supra. A lot of Lexus vehicles, a lot of Chevrolet trucks. Got a love for Chevrolet trucks. So my current fleet's 2 BMWs. Those are my wife's cars. And then I have one Lexus that's old, but it does great. And I have another one that's wrecked. And then I got 2 Chevy trucks. We got a Tahoe, and then I've got an 85 C30. It's a big block truck. That truck only moves when it has to, because it does 6 mpg. So, sounds great, but it don't move very often. But so background on what got me into this would be, I loved cars. I loved going fast in them. I didn't have a whole lot of money to pay anybody else to make them fast for me. So, I think everybody's story at some point in performance starts out with sound systems. Well, mine's no different. I used to build sub boxes in high school. Used to build sound systems for my friends, and I built a couple of those, had this whole portfolio. It was awesome, So, got out of that and started getting the performance side of things after I built the first 240, and I converted that harness, with an online diagram at 17, and I was like, okay, it doesn't seem like many people know how to do this proficiently, and so I feel like it's something that I could do for people and offer. So, I started out doing conversion harnesses, and that basically, rolled through probably the next 10 years of my life. It was, I ran a company called QFab, which is, pretty much dissolved now, but I used to do mail order harnesses, performance builds. I had a shop after going through a couple of different places. I had a shop in Casey, in South Carolina, where, I used to build vehicles and, build my own stuff. And I don't know, it was just a lot. So, I obviously, being younger and not really understanding the business side of things, I was very good at cars and wasn't so good with people. I wasn't great at communication and all those things. So being a, salesperson at SOHO has really made me have to really lean into that and make sure that I'm on top of that, because we have fantastic clients, and obviously want to make sure they have the best customer service possible. And I'm human. I'm going to slip sometimes, but I do give it my best effort to make sure that, old habits don't rise back up. So if you're not improving, then, if you're not moving forward, then you're moving backwards. So pretty much how that goes. But when it comes to my background, I've worked on anything from Nissans to McLarens. One of the wildest builds I ever did was a Land Rover Defender that had a Coyote driveline that was supercharged and had a 6R80 transmission, and we pretty much wired that from scratch. It was 6x6 converted by a company, and then one of the companies that I subcontracted for before I came here pretty much got their hands on it and wanted to take care of it, because they originally contracted the build. Wanted to take care of their client, so I was heavily involved in making sure that thing was right. And then so a little bit more background. Me and Dylan, have been building S chassis since my first one. There's actually a picture popped up in my memories today of me and him and one of our friends, Zach, at the shop I used to work at, with all of our S chassis. So my VQ swap convertible that I built in 2011 was there. And he had a SR coupe, and then our other buddy had a SR hatch, and this is funny, man. So I'm sure if you guys are watching this, you're probably aware Dylan's the lead technician. He does shop foreman role here, and he also drives the race car, Nismo Bay. So I basically, when stuff started kind of dissolving at the other company, I was like, okay, it's time for me to bow out, and I called Dylan, and I said, hey, man, I had done some work previously here for Dick and George, and, felt like we had a decent working relationship, me as an outside contractor. And I basically called Dylan and I said, hey, I need an interview. Stuff's not going great where I'm at. If they'll give me the opportunity, I feel like I can really bring some value here. And, they gave me that interview, and the rest is history, guys. I started here as a technician and have, basically I have an affinity and a specialty for doing swaps and building strange vehicles and working on stuff that's not Nissan Infinitis. We've supercharged a couple of vehicles here that aren't Nissan Infiniti. And realistically, when it comes down to it, my personal motto is if it's fast enough to do something stupid in, I'm all for it. That's all I care about. Yeah. I don't care what wheels it drives. I don't care if it has rotors or if it has 4 cylinders or 6 or 8. If I can do burnouts in it rolling, I'm all for it. So it's like, I've always just had a love for anything fast and, anything fun to drive. And, that's, yeah. So we do obviously specialize in Nissan Infiniti here, and we do some really, really cool stuff with these cars. And they can be made pretty rowdy for, the money that you put into them. Everything's expensive nowadays, but for the money you put in these, you can build something that's reliable and really solid and just puts a smile on your face every time you mash the loud pedal. So, yeah, that's a short story of my background. I obviously love cars. I love being here and being a part of this company. It's a fantastic group of guys, and we go through our motions, and, as with everywhere, we have some good days and we have some character building days, but either way, it's always forward motion and always, product development and making absolutely sure that with research and development and new products that we forward the ball as much as we can for the community, because there are a lot of really cool people out there doing some really cool stuff. And I mean, we just really like being in that circle of guys that are, making some stuff happen for the community, and we all kind of have our strengths, and we, stick to those. And here we are, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if we do go out and race somebody, I don't want to beat them because their car blew up. I want to beat them just because ours was a little bit faster. Like, everybody should be fast.
Yeah.
Like we like everybody being fast so we can all go out and play, because that's what we're here for, right? We build fast cars when we go drive them. Like, it kind of sucks being stuck in the garage all the time. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the long and short of it. I've been around cars for a long time. I got a 5, almost 6-year-old, and he owns probably as many Hot Wheels as Walmart. So he's got the bug, and my wife is into cars, and yeah. So here we are.
So since you work in sales, what are common questions that you get?
So if I had to pick the 3 most common questions, I think number 1 would likely be, would you pick supercharger or turbocharger? The second one would be, what parts are involved in doing a VR transmission conversion, because it's a very hot topic right now. And I think the third one would be, likely, an Ecutech versus uprev thing. So it's kind of the same things that you went over with you and Nick went over that. So I mean, those questions are very common. The big thing there is the fact that when it comes down to it, if people are asking those questions, then, realistically, if we're going to sit here and take responsibility, we haven't done a good enough job in explaining all these things to the community, because we do enjoy sharing the information. We don't try to keep all the information here. We try to spread it as much as possible, so that way, even if somebody does decide to do things themselves, because we sell a lot of kits for DIYers and weekend warriors alike, they have all the tools and the information and the processes that need to make that happen, and then all the tech support on the back end. And I mean, there's a lot of tech support that comes through, and I mean, we do our absolute best to get to it every day, but it can be upwards of 15, 20 people needing help on something specific, and man, we run through it as much as we can, try to make sure everybody gets taken care of. It just gets to be a lot. But when it comes to the basic questions, it's really just, it feels good that people call us and ask, because that makes me feel like, hey, the community is acknowledging, like, hey, I feel like you guys know what you're talking about, the way you carry yourselves, the way your projects go, the kind of stuff you do. And so, I'm calling you because I want to get your expert advice on this. And I mean, I'll tell you, man, I'll tell people what they don't want to hear, because the truth, when it comes down to it, is more important. Now, don't get me wrong. I try not to be harsh about it or anything, but I'll tell them straight up, like, how you're going is not the right way, or you need to do this instead. Or we have some people, like supercharged clients, who want their car to be quiet, and I'm just like, no, that's not how it works with these. Like, if you want to make this amount of power on a small displacement engine, it's going to be a little bit louder just because it has to be.
We can make it happen.
We can make it happen, but it's going to be at a lower power level than what usually is desired. So, there's just a lot of different ways and avenues you can go about getting to it. So, I mean, realistically, when it comes down to it, if any of you were to ever call me and say, hey, I want to accomplish, I want to supercharge my car. I'm like, all right, cool. 3 things. What kind of fuel do you want to run? What's your end power goal? And what's the fastest car you've ever driven? Because we don't want to build a car for somebody that they're not going to know how to drive, which is a big reason as to why we take people for rides in their cars when they come pick them up, because I just want people to know, like, hey, this car is capable of putting you in the ditch if you ain't careful. Like,
especially the people that go from NA to boost.
Right. I mean, it's a 100% plus increase in horsepower. Like one of the recent vehicles we did, it was 2 weeks from 290 horsepower to 600 horsepower. 2 weeks. And he came and picked the car up, and I took him for a ride. And I mean, he kept his composure. Super nice guy, but he was grinning from ear to ear. I mean, you can't help it. Like, you just can't help it. So, but the really big thing there is the safety factor. We like building fast cars. Everybody likes speed. Obviously, with speed, there's always that risk factor. There's always that little bit of danger that comes with it. So we just want to make sure people understand what they're getting into before they hit that loud pedal and what to expect. The torque management has been a major help with that. Yours truly went and tested it out in a car that does 4 digits, and it works. It really works. So, that was really cool to get to go do that and make sure that functioned, because, if it'll perform at that level, then we know for a fact it'll keep everybody at the 600, 650, 700 horsepower mark safe, or at least give you a much better chance of being safe in a car that makes that kind of power, because it does get dangerous. It really does. It can definitely get dangerous once you're in a car where you really have to consider whether you have space to hit the pedal or not. You're in something fast, because I'm in some of my daily beaters. I'm just wide open throttle everywhere all the time, and it's like you don't even have to think about it. Just smash the gas, But some of these cars, it's like, all right, that car is like 300 yards in front of me. Do I have enough room to do a pull here, or do I need to chill and wait for another spot? So, obviously in Mexico.
Yeah, in Mexico.
Obviously in Mexico. So.
For safety, because we're big on safety over here, what do you think is for a client and they want to come and get a dyno tune, what are the steps to make sure their car is 100% safe and ready to go on the dyno?
So for safety for a dyno, say if you had a 370Z or even a 350Z, something of that nature, and it was, a basic bolt-on car. So a lot of these vehicles, they pass through a lot of hands. Some of the work may have been questionable. So the biggest thing is we want to make sure 3 things. We want to make sure there's no major fluid leaks, because fluids can spontaneously combust if they hit something hot like a header. We want to make sure there's no wiring or any hoses or anything dangling near any hot or moving parts. And then we want to make sure, for our intents and purposes, we make sure the O2 sensors are working, because you can't properly tune a vehicle while O2 sensors working. But we also check to make sure, so whenever we do a pre-dyno inspection on these, we check to make sure all the chassis components are in good shape. We check to make sure the bushings are in good shape. If you're a Z33 or a G35, then the front lower control arms, the radius arms, all that stuff is usually blown if you haven't done it yet. And that can make your alignment go all over the place and whatnot. So it's more of a safety inspection as a pre-dyno inspection, because realistically, again, you're turning the power up on something, you want to make sure that the vehicle's safe, you know what to expect, make sure there's no cord showing on the tires, make sure the brakes have life, and so on and so forth. And the thing is some people, we've had clients come to us that have just bought these cars and don't know anything about them. And they bring them to us and it's like, hey, you got a major safety concern here. And they're like, oh, I had no idea. Because not everybody loves cars. Not everybody knows about cars like that. So we really try to make sure that people have a full, solid understanding of where their vehicle is at that time and what it's capable of. And not only that, but if something were to happen where it's like, we can't even tune this car, we're not going to charge them if we can't tune the car. Like, hey man, we need to get this fixed. We can get these couple of things repaired, and then we can get your car on the rollers and get you dialed in. But we really want to make sure your car is safe and everything's functional first. So there's a lot that goes into that. Forced induction can be even more involved if a car is aftermarket, supercharged or turbocharged. Then you go into making sure there's no vacuum leaks, making sure all the belts are in good condition if it's supercharged, making sure the wastegate hoses aren't pinched and the lines are correct on a turbocharged car, because supercharged cars, you can't really overboost unless the pulley's too big. But on a turbo car, if something happens with the gate, it can be game over in an instant if you're on up rev. Ecutech's really good about catching it, but if as long as the settings are correct on Ecutech. But up rev, it'll just, all right, boost to the moon, here we go. So
basically
all that stuff's important at making sure that the vehicle's safe, that we have the client has a good experience here and really knows a lot more about their car than they did when they showed up. Because we really shoot and try to make sure that everybody knows more than they did when they show up, because that's, we like sharing knowledge, and people come to us and we really appreciate that, and we want to make sure that everybody has a good experience. And, if they do have any issues, then we can help them resolve those, or at least they'll know so they can resolve them themselves. And it's kind of like hey, this is dangerous, you need to fix it now, or hey, in 6 months, be ready to take care of this kind of thing.
What are a couple builds or your top 3 favorite builds here that you've done here at Soho or helped with at least?
So hands down, David's G is number one.
Mm-hmm.
The red G35. That car is just an absolute animal.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of hard to describe because I'll tell you, I've driven the car a couple of times because we drive around to keep the fluids fresh, and I got the really awesome experience of getting to drive it to Z Days. Z Days. Z
Z Days or Z Nats?
Z Nats. Z Nats at Z1.
Both good events.
Edit that out. So yeah, it was Z Nationals. I was very tired that day, so it's but yeah, I got the super awesome experience of getting to drive it. And I mean, we literally parked the trailer a couple miles from the venue like they usually do, and we drove the car to Chick-fil-A and got like breakfast, and then drove it to Z1. And I mean, y'all, this is a car that makes 1,189 wheel horsepower and is on slicks and has a parachute and has no seats, no interior or roll cage. And I was just grinning from ear to ear driving this thing. Like, it's just, people ask me, like, what's it like driving? I'm like, it's like driving a tornado and a hurricane at the same time. There's just no rhyme or reason or rhythm to it. It's just, the amount of power it makes is just obnoxious. And it's like,
oh yeah, it's as race car as you can get.
Yes, it really is. And I mean, it runs straight E. It's ticked off when it's cold. Like, it's an experience to get to do that thing. So that one was awesome. The black 370 is definitely my second favorite. I mean, I have personally 3 weeks of work in that car.
Tell the people which black 370.
So this is the black twin turbo top mount 370, the one that did over 1,000 horsepower. So this is a client vehicle, and this is one that I extensively had my hands in because there was a lot of custom stuff. Dylan built the engine. Our lead fabricator Jar did the turbo kit. It's a mirror image twin G3770 turbo kit. Recirculated wastegates. I mean, this thing is just like unbelievable. The amount of fabrication and work and dedication and love went into that car is just wild. And like I said, I personally have 3 weeks in it. Doing the plumbing, the electrical, doing the assembly, custom AC lines to make sure the air conditioning would work. I mean, there's just so much in that car, and that car is as close as I can imagine David's car would be, while also having cruise control and air conditioning and a passenger seat. Like, it's stock interior, has a half cage. Well, it has a half cage, so it's not fully stock, but
it looks like an OEM car.
It does.
Inside and out.
It does.
Other than the cage.
Right, but it definitely does. But it's one of those cars where it's like, if you're in map 3 or 4, every time you hit the go pedal, it tries to kill you. Like, it's, the cars get to that certain level, and it's like, I don't know, it's like trying to ride a lion. Like, imagine just hopping out in the Sahara and like jumping on the back of a lion. It's like, all right, cool, here we go. Like, it might get me today, but I'm still going to do it, like, so yeah, that one's insane. And I mean, number 3, I wasn't super heavily involved in this car. It was here before my time, but I really love the wide body, the custom paint wide body 350 that had the HB. Like I said, I wasn't super involved in that, but I got to be a part of the reassembly process. It did have some electrical stuff that needed to be dealt with, so I dealt with that. That was awesome. Like, that car is, again, another one that makes like 900 horsepower, and
the car's like one of one.
Yeah, it's like a spaceship.
Oh yeah.
Like, it doesn't drive. It's a 350Z, but it doesn't drive like one. It drives like an exotic car, and I've driven exotic cars, so I know what they feel like. So, I mean, just the way it felt and it moved, and it was just, car was awesome too.
The attention to detail on that car is just
100%.
I've never seen anything near like in depth as that car.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, obviously with all the vehicles here at Soho, we take a lot of precautions on making sure that nothing happens to the body, the bodies of the vehicles. Most of the vehicles that show up here have super nice paint on them. There's factory OE paint. It's really good shape. So we, make sure that everything is in as good of or better shape when it leaves here. And that's one of those cars where it's like everybody would walk past it and we kind of be scared to breathe around it because it's like, there's paint on there that you can't get anymore. Like, it's like that, and it's like, okay.
It was like some type of $100 paint.
So it's the, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's either the glitter or it's the pearl that's in the $100 bill, the new one, and that was actually in the clear coat. And something about the U.S. government basically told paint companies, hey, you can't sell that anymore. Like, cut it out and stop making it available. So it's like, you can't even replace that. So it's, yeah. But yeah. And you've got that kind of paint on a custom wide body on a car with 14-inch wide wheels in the rear. So either 13s or 14s, and it makes 900 horsepower. So, I mean, not only does it look incredible, but it also makes a metric ton of power and can pretty much wipe the road up with anything that's next to it. I mean,
even the bodywork on that car was very done up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just a normal wide body.
Right. Once you go to that level of customization at a certain point, it can kind of get cheesy, and it's like, okay, you took stuff too far. But that one, everything Alcantara suede interior, everything just made sense. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like anything was out of place.
Everything fit with that car
for sure. Yeah. So that would probably be my top three. And I mean, obviously, my fourth place would be every other car I've worked on here, because I love working on fast cars, and I have a joy for fixing fast cars. So don't worry if I didn't mention your car and you're watching this. I loved your car too. Trust me.
So getting into a little bit of the tech stuff, the wiring stuff, because you told me off camera we were talking about your DE swap that you did.
Yeah, so when I originally did, so we got to roll back a little bit to 2011. So in 2011, I had a RB25 swapped S13 hatch with a single turbo and forward-facing intake manifold. And I drove that car with a group of friends up to Import Alliance in Nashville. I had Pac-Man on the intercooler and a bunch of random stuff. I was one of those people, but so I drove it up there, and then after that, with some lint in my pocket, I drove to Wisconsin because I had some folks up there, some really good friends, people I still consider good friends, that wanted me to wire up some S chassis, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm out of school, I don't really have a whole lot, going on right now, so sure, why not? Let's go some places and meet some people and wire some race cars. So I basically, when I got there, one of my friends up there had a VQ35 swap, and I was kind of intrigued by that. I had seen the swap done in Columbia a couple of times, and I was like, okay, that could be really cool. 300 horsepower and a 6-speed, and an S chassis could be a lot of fun.
And this was back in 2011.
This was in 2011, right? So I basically lived in a warehouse in Wisconsin, in Delafield, Wisconsin, and I was just surrounded by S chassis. So basically, it was. I don't remember what the other half of it was, but basically it's very popular up there to rent out warehouses for long-term storage, because obviously they have long winters, and a lot of people will store their race cars there, and guys will get together and basically go in 5 or 6 and store all their cars there, bring all their tools there, and then groups of friends will help work on their stuff and go back and forth. So there was a lot of cars there, and I basically slowly wired up every single one of them. A lot of SR stuff, and then I got a wild hair, and I was like, all right, cool, let's VQ swap my car. Can I trade you this RB25 for the VQ? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so up in Wisconsin, I yanked out the RB and dropped the VQ in, and with the help of another good friend up there, built mounts and had a drive shaft built. And it's funny enough, back then, James from RT Tuning did the ECU for me. I was like, I need to figure out somebody who can do the ECU for this. And I was like, I ain't got a lot of money, but I was like, I got a turbo kit with it. Do you want a turbo kit? I'll trade you that for the tune. He was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I sent him the ECU and shipped him the turbo kit, and he, did an Nats delete, did that. I mean, I basically wired that car up to where it had the IPDM out of a 350Z in, and it also had the gauge cluster. The speedometer didn't work, and I had to break a lot of the LEDs off so it didn't light up like a Christmas tree. But the tack sure as hell worked. I mean, tack and the coolant temp did. So I was like, this is sweet, So, and back then I was very heavy into tucking engine bays, which basically is I was making all of the wiring disappear. You couldn't see it under the hood, making chassis harnesses disappear, doing chassis harness tucks, fuse box relocations, and stuff of that nature. So through all of that, got very good at reading wiring diagrams and being able to decipher, different things through the years of the vehicles. And I mean, I could pretty much wire an S chassis anywhere from 89 to 98 right now with my eyes closed. I know those so well. I mean, I can tell you what wire colors are for specific functions in those engine harnesses. I've done so many of them. But yes, I finished that. And then it got to November and it started snowing, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to be up here for another 6 months through the snow, because once it starts snowing up there, if you ain't got a snowmobile or snowshoes, you ain't going anywhere. So I was like, I think it's about time for me to head back home. So I started driving to South Carolina, and in Indiana, a semi sideswiped me and like ran me into a concrete barrier. So I basically lived in a pilot station for a few days until another group of friends of mine like came up and got me. Mm-hmm. And I had a broken car, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I mean, I tell you, man, I look back on it this day, like the community of people I had around me was so amazing. Like I had 2 people donate shells to me. So I get the car back up and running. So I swapped it out, and I was like, I kind of want to do a convertible with it. So I put it in a convertible, and got that back up and running. And then, it was I don't know. That was a whole whirlwind of time. But basically, long story short, I had a convertible, with a VQ in it, and that car outran all kinds of stuff it shouldn't have. Like it was just a blast. Like had a half cage in it and a VQ swap, and it was like nobody knew what had hit them when I raced them. And, it wasn't that fast, but for an S chassis, it was kind of surprising. It was a lot of fun. Very well balanced, I'll tell you that. Like, that's a great swap for those cars.
Mm-hmm. For anyone that's, like, looking into doing the VHR swap into, like, the 350 or the G37 chassis, like, what's some advice on stuff that they should look for whenever they are in that market, or what are good pros and what are the cons that come with it?
So the pro is the VHR can basically do what a DE built can in stock form. So I mean, the VHR engine has been proven to do 650, 700 horsepower with a turbo kit pretty easily, whereas the DE's 400, 450, that's about all they can do. So I mean, the VHR for power, for torque, for delivery of power on that front, they're just absolutely fantastic. They're also more modern, so usually have them lower miles in better condition. The big thing I'll tell people is the stuff that's going to get you caught up is the wiring and also the CAN bus system. So the older style vehicle uses an older protocol of CAN, and then the new style obviously uses a newer one. So in 2008, that's when they swapped over to the new style of CAN bus and Nissan. That's why you can HR swap a DE chassis and everything still works. It's because the HR and DE ECU, that whole chassis operates off the same CAN bus protocol. So in 2009, they changed it, and it's all different now. So to get everything to communicate, you have to have a module. These modules are in development. We were working on one for a bit for R&D for a manual vehicle. But I'll tell you, like, the manual is a lot easier to do than the automatic. The automatics we found are trouble because you have to have like a shifter. You have to be able to lock them into gears, a lot that goes into that. So if you're going to do it manual and you don't care about having air conditioning or gauges, then man, that's the way to go, because you can make 600 horsepower on a, on a VHR. We did it. We did a 600 horsepower with HR turbo kit and into a 350Z, and that car was sweet. The car was dumb fast. 600 horsepower on pump gas. So.
Rudy's car that was.
Yeah,
right?
that was Rudy's car.
That thing was wild.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. So, like if your main intent is speed, VHRs are a great way to go. Power per dollar, like, it's also a good move for a D chassis, but I mean, realistically, when it comes down to it, if you want the VHR, it may be better to start with a VHR chassis right off the rip, because 370Zs and G37s are actually pretty reasonable right now if you're trying to find one used. And I mean, you can do that and then get plenty of forced induction options. Like, there are so many supercharger and turbo kits on the market. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but ours is the best, So, yeah, our kits are great. They do perform super well. And if you buy a kit from us, you got SOHO backing you for life. Whatever you need on that front to make sure you're taken care of and make sure your stuff works correctly. I'm sure everybody knows we had a little bit of fiasco with the supercharger stuff a little bit ago, but I can tell you, like, everybody who bought one from us, who gave us the opportunity to make it right, we did. A lot of times out of pocket, because that's what the community deserves. And I mean, it was issues that were unbeknownst to us at the time. Manufacturer belt got discontinued without any kind of warning, and there was basically like 2 months of what do we do? Like, because it was like, okay, they're joking, and then it was like, okay, they're not joking, and then it was like, oh, we have to find something that's going to work because we have all these orders open. And, I will tell you this for a fact, like, as much of a struggle as that was to deal with, I myself, and I think I can speak for the team here, says we are absolutely blessed on that front to have the clientele that we do, because there were so many people that were so patient through this process and so understanding. And I mean, there are a lot of issues that arise in motorsports. I mean, cars are cars. They're rubber, steel, and copper, and some aluminum and some other little metals mixed in there. But when it comes down to it and stuff doesn't work, there is a solution. And sometimes it takes time to find that solution. So we're just very blessed in that aspect, that people were understanding and letting us develop the solution and make sure that stuff got out to everybody. And, now we got it down to a science now. So it's good. So very happy. And then we're also, something else cool that we're doing now is we're cutting lead times way down. So we used to have lead times at like 3 months, and now we're down to like 1.5 on a new supercharger order, and right around there for a turbo kit too. So I mean, we're able to bang these stuff out, because I mean, realistically, who wants to spend a bunch of money and then wait to get their parts? We don't like that as much as anybody else does. We want to get people boosted as fast as possible. Because you spend the money, you want to be fast. It's what you spend the money for.
Correct.
It's for the enjoyment, it's miles per gallon. So
eventually, we want to have our whole website in stock.
We're working on it.
It's goal.
Coming. Yeah, it's coming. So that's definitely coming down the pipe. And even if it's not in stock, it'll be a very quick turnaround time. Or even if it's everything on the kit's not going to be in stock, you'll be able to have something shipped same day from that kit, and then the other parts will be close behind. So, as with everything, things take time to get processes and stuff in place. And, like I said, we have some of the best clientele in the world. You guys are awesome. We couldn't do what we do without you guys. So, thank you. Thank you, everybody out there, for what y'all do and letting us do what we do. We just appreciate the opportunity to serve you if this is what you want to do. If, realistically, when it comes down to it, we help people make their car fast. A lot of people come to me and say, hey, my car's slow. I'm like, hey, I can help you with that.
It's a problem we can fix.
Right, exactly. That's what we're here for. Is yes, we want to make absolutely sure we can keep doing research and development and stuff. So, money does make the world go around, but we really do enjoy helping people, because a lot of people have cars that, and when it comes down to it, I've talked to a lot of people too, where somebody's like, hey, I'm going to be ready in a year. And I'm like, you know what? That's great. Let me tell you what to expect. Let me get you this install manual so you can plan for a year. Let me get you all these parts. Let me get you all the information, numbers you need. And of course, it's subject to change a little bit, but at least you'll have a goal to shoot for. And I mean, if you don't have a dream, then, you don't have anything to shoot for. Yeah. So, for some, and there's a lot of those people who come back and says, hey man, I'm ready. And I'm like, bet, let's go, so, and it's super awesome to be able to watch that process for people, and taking it from, buying a stock car and learning about the vehicle to being able to do something really wild with it and become, some of the few that are forced induction. So, it's an awesome process to get to help people through that.
Correct. I really like how we meet clients and we build that connection with them, even like throughout their builds and like from like start to end. For sure. So that's one thing, and our customer service is, I feel like, one of the best in the industry. 100%. And I will tell you guys this, like myself personally, I do struggle with this a little bit, because there is a very high volume of clients, and we really want to make sure everybody feels as special as possible. And again, I'm a human. I'll slip sometimes, so I really do my best to make sure everybody feels special and feels heard. And we treat everybody with the utmost respect, and we try to make absolutely sure that anybody that comes to us, whether it's a small issue, hey, you bought a fuel pump, cool, let me get that taken care of for you. Hey, you bought a supercharger kit, cool, let me get that taken care of for you. The same level of excitement, because you're coming to us because you're buying parts because you want to make your car faster, and that's awesome. Like, that's what we're all here for, right? Mm-hmm. Bound by a love of rubber and steel and horsepower and oil and gasoline, and here we all are holding hands and making horsepower. It's great, maybe not holding hands, but like. Well, thanks guys for joining us on this podcast with Justin. Thanks for having you on again. Yeah, for sure, man. Happy to be here. We'll see you guys on the next one.